And to those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness, you are jealousy, you are envy, you are hatred.
These ICE raids have really ramped up beginning in early June. And part of the reason why is because Stephen Miller specifically told ICE, listen, you guys are not meeting the numbers that we want. So we want you to go for the low hanging fruit. We want you to go to Home Depot parking lots. We want to increase our numbers.
That was Stephen Miller speaking at Charlie Kirk's memorial service, chastising Democrats for being wicked and evil. And that's from the same man who has told ICE to target as many immigrants as possible to boost Trump's deportation numbers. Something that you could imagine Christ himself would teach. But we have more on Miller's hypocrisy in just a moment. But first, here's more of his speech from that memorial service. Take a look.
Our lineage and our legacy hails back to Athens, to Rome, to Philadelphia, to Monticello. Our ancestors built the cities. They produced the art and architecture. They built the industry. Erica stands on the shoulders of thousands of years of warriors, of women who raised up families, raised up city, raised up industry, raised up civilization. You are wickedness, you are jealousy, you are envy, you are hatred. You are nothing. You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build. We are the ones who create. We are the ones who lift up humanity.
Now, Miller would like you to believe that Democrats are evil and Republicans are virtuous. But let's remind ourselves of some of the hateful and wicked statements that were made by conservatives. Take a look.
I don't know if you call them people. In some cases, they're not people, in my opinion. These are animals, okay?
Why do we want these people from, quote, all these whole countries here?
The only end of the conflict is complete and total surrender by those who support Muslim terror. In World War II, we did not negotiate a surrender with the Nazis. We did not negotiate a surrender with the Japanese. We nuked the Japanese twice in order to get unconditional surrender. That needs to be the same here.
We will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
New sheriff in town, I have to tell you, one of my favorite things to watch on YouTube these days are the court hearings where illegals are in court and ICE shows up to drag them out of court.
She gets out and she starts asking me all sorts of ridiculous questions. And, you know, you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever. In
that elevator, we were joined by Ilhan Omar. Well, it was just us three in there, and I looked over and I said, well, look at there, it's the Jihad Squad.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're gonna be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something, just kill them.
I'm sorry, I'm fed up with these solemn cries for peace and unity and love, and this idea that calls for violence are purely one-sided. If you do not or refuse to accept it, that's a you problem. But it's ironic that Miller would claim that the left builds nothing when it was conservatives who scammed their own donors in the We Build the Wall scheme. You, of course, remember Steve Bannon pleaded guilty to defrauding New York donors who were told that 100% of their money was going toward Trump's border wall. In reality, over $1 million was funneled to the president of We Build the Wall. We've got more, some of the other speakers there, but Brett, I want to bring you in here. What do you make of Miller's comments at this, again, memorial service?
It was insane. That was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. I had to watch what unfolded at that rally that was very obviously a Christian nationalist rally. This was not a pro-America rally. There is, if the idea is that we want to unite America, like you would think a normal person would be like, all right, the violence, someone was killed, that's horrible. We should bring down the level of rhetoric to a point where we can come together as a country and unite. But he's like, his weird Hitlerian speech there being like the others. Like if you pull together what fascism is, it's like this victimhood mentality and fear of otherness on the outside combined with militarism and like working together with private corporations in order to like give sweetheart deals and control the economy while pushing out people you don't want to be involved in it. That was a playbook on wildly clear display with Stephen Miller. And to hear Stephen Miller say that they're the jealous ones, that other people are jealous, who in their right mind would be jealous of Stephen Miller? Like the guy's whole, my contention is that this guy tried to ask a girl out at Santa Monica High School in 1997, and a Mexican dude got with her instead. And ever since then, he has declared war on everyone with a darker complexion than he has. Like you watched that, Jordan. What did you think watching this this tribute band to Charlie Kirk?
I just, as I saw the clips coming out, I became more and more kind of shocked. I shouldn't have been. I mean, this was a Turning Point production. They had pyrotechnics for a widow coming out to speak at her deceased husband's memorial service. I don't know what I should have expected, but that so many speakers turned to this white nationalist rhetoric. I mean, if anything, it was a fitting tribute to Charlie Kirk, because he is somebody who, while he was alive, repeatedly pushed the racist, white nationalist, great replacement conspiracy theory, which is immigrants are coming in and replacing white people. That is not true, but it is something that hateful bigots like to say to use to further their hate and their incitement against people of color and immigrants. So if anything, it was a fitting tribute to somebody who throughout his political career dabbled and peddled hate for personal and political gain. A fitting tribute, but Miller wasn't the only one. Tucker Carlson is being accused of pushing anti-Semitism for comments he made at Charlie Kirk's memorial service. Take a look.
Charlie would have loved this, not just because he loved large groups of people, but because ultimately he was a Christian evangelist. And it actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I could just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem.
Okay, well, let's see what some other people said and what the reactions to that were. David M. Friedman, the US ambassador to Israel during Trump's first term, wrote in response, anti-Semitic innuendo and cackling like a chicken are never appropriate, but even less so at a memorial service for a great man. Ryan Saavedra, senior reporter at the Daily Wire, posted, Tucker Carlson could not contain his hatred for Jews for even just a few minutes. In fact, it's what he led with at Charlie Kirk's memorial. And it will end with Laura Loomer, who wrote, why does the GOP refuse to condemn Tucker Carlson for using Charlie Kirk's memorial to suggest Jews killed Charlie Kirk? Just exactly how many people in Congress are on the take from Qatari money that they won't have moral clarity on this issue? Tucker is poisoning the party. And Brett, I know you have some skepticism and you have some doubts that maybe that's what specifically he was alluding to, but what do you make of what he said and what these reactions were?
It's not that necessarily that. It's like what's in the text in these scenarios. You have to actually, like, you can't just fill it. You know, I can never know what Tucker Carlson is thinking, right? Tucker Carlson said people were eating hummus. Hummus itself would not be invented for another 1,300 years. So good job, Tucker Carlson, for painting that picture. But like, what he's doing allows for anti-Semites to say, yes, that's right, Jews killed Jesus. And in this scenario, Jews, and a lot of people are saying like Jews have killed Charlie Kirk. He is opening up the possibility for that interpretation, but he isn't necessarily saying it explicitly. What I think is fascinating and fantastic is that the Daily Wire's high-ranking people, senior reporters, are calling him anti-Semitic. And it calls into question what's next for this party. I think in the wake of Charlie Kirk's slaying, the the Turning Point USA has no talent anymore. Like, if I don't want any innuendo about getting assassinated, but like if Ben Shapiro retires from the Daily Wire, they have like 5 people who could still get the job done because he hired well. Charlie Kirk didn't hire well. There's nobody there at that network with any good kind of voice. So this kind of stuff's gonna happen where they're gonna go after each other and try to take up the mantle. Now, Laura, I forget if it was Laura Loomer or somebody after it was Marjorie Taylor Greene. After Ben Shapiro gives $1 million to Turning Point, Marjorie Taylor Greene immediately is like, there is no way that essentially Jews or Muslims, but probably Jews, should have any say in what happens in the future of Turning Point USA because they are evangelist, like right-wing nut jobs. And they're gonna be fighting each other. And I'm fascinated by this being at play. Like, I don't even need to say what Tucker Carlson's intentions were. They probably were anti-Semitic because he's terrible. But knowing Tucker Carlson, he's probably just saying it just so that the people who are anti-Semitic can be anti-Semitic. And he has enough cover to say, I was just talking about what people eat in the Middle East. Everybody eats hummus there, even though it wouldn't be invented for another 1,300 years.
Yeah, well, I will say there is one person in that orbit. I don't know if he's still there, but he was for a while, and that is Benny Johnson. I don't know what relationship he still has, but I think he is maybe seeing an avenue for him. He's had a strong relationship with that organization in the past. And Ken Klippenstein and I were talking last week, some of the clout chasing off of this has been grotesque. And I even saw shared around today, a Turning Point staffer posted on Instagram a statement about how disgusted they were that a lot of these people were seeing this memorial service as an opportunity to get selfies with prominent right-wing figures. And it reminded me of this book that Mark Leibovich wrote in 2013, I think. It's called This Town. And he was so disgusted by the media and political scene in Washington that he wrote this tell-all about all these people, the media figures and politicians partying together. And the opening chapter, the very first thing he wrote about, which prompted him to write this book, was a prominent media figure, his name's escaped me, used to host Meet the Press. And at his funeral, he was so disgusted by people swapping business cards and trying to book each other on different shows and politicians trying to get hits on different shows in the upcoming days. That's what prompted him. And it's the same here. You have a prominent death, people see an opportunity for themselves, and that's how they're spending this time. And for Miller, it's pushing his white nationalism. For Tucker, it's pushing his white nationalism and potentially his anti-Semitism. And for many of the attendees, it's how do I boost my profile? How do I make connections? Again, I go back to, this was a memorial service. Are you really upset about this? It's just so bizarre to me. It's really bizarre behavior.
And like, I go back and forth on what's Christian and what's not Christian, because like there are gospels, like in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, a lot of people are just changing who he was. They are rewriting what this dude was about. And I think he should not have been killed. And I think it is it is natural to want to do this, but at the same time, really, really weird to pretend this guy was a saint, like to pretend things about him. Like at my memorial service, I don't want people pretending I was perfect. But like that is part of Christianity. Like there's gospels that got written out that are about Jesus killing a kid because he potentially just bumped into him. Like they got rid of that. That's not in the story because it's not convenient. One thing about Charlie Kirk is like, again, I think the guy should be alive and we should have a battle of ideas and not a battle of involving any violence. But one thing I know for certain is in the wake of if the tables were turned and someone on the left was assassinated, Charlie Kirk, like the thing about this guy is he would search for a way to make it okay and give permission to his side to say horrible things about the person who was killed. And this is not a hypothetical. He did it with Martin Luther King Jr. Like he advocated for rewriting what we all think about Martin Luther King. And not to mention George Floyd, he's a scumbag. Like this is like you are disrespecting the memory of somebody who died if you are or was killed, if you are changing the narrative about it. You don't have to say all bad things about them. You can hold off on saying the bad things, but they are lying about who this guy was. And when people like Stephen Miller go out there and be like, they are doing this. When Tucker Carlson is saying, oh, there's a group of people in Jerusalem deciding together to kill Jesus. Like there is no narrative out there. There is no CSI level indication that this guy was in a room with anybody. It was just a dude. So they're saying a bunch of they're doing this and they're doing that. It was a guy who shot Charlie Kirk he acted alone, so to speak. And the right wing, rather than making us all safer and bringing down the temperature, are absolutely by the thousands in a very like onward Christian soldiers type of way, saying in Stephen Miller's own words, the army that has been raised as a result of what? Some guy I don't know, whose actions I don't, and most people in America don't agree with? Like that's insane. And that's the last thing I'll say is, like, I don't think Charlie Kirk ever really spoke from the heart. I don't think he did. He was always doing something. And that's what, when you're looking at political discourse, you gotta ask yourself, is this person being genuine or are they doing something? Like Bernie Sanders, genuine. Ron Paul, genuine. Like they're just listening and they're like, for better or for worse, agree with it or not. They're the same person everywhere. Charlie Kirk came on this show and was a completely different person to who he was the next show he did with his buddies. Why? Because he's doing something. He's trying to get us to be like, oh, he's not so bad. Like hopefully no one thought that afterwards. But like, they're doing something rhetorical. Tucker Carlson's always doing something. And we know that because behind the scenes, we always get another leaked text message where like, I don't believe a lick of what I just said. Sorry, yeah, that's a lot.
My final two things. You mentioned George Floyd, and just to show how he operated. Shortly after his death, the coroner's report found that it was asphyxiation. He posted that the coroner actually said that it was drug overdose. They then issued a correction on his personal Facebook page or his branded Facebook page saying, oh, actually we were wrong. That's not true. Then over the course of the next few years, repeatedly on these college campus tours during debates would lie again and say that the coroner never found that and that it was drug overdose and that he was a scumbag. And that's the most important thing you need to know about George Floyd. So even when presented with evidence disproving his initial claim, he would still go out and lie about how this guy died. That's one thing. But then my final point is, look, we could say it's gaudy, we could say it's crass, but at my funeral, you say you don't want people to pretend like you're perfect. At my funeral, I do want pyrotechnics.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.